Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. This is the first lesson for this month's Tajweed course. Now, uh, this first class is going to be mostly just me talking. I'm going to go through what we hope to achieve during this course for the first half of the class. I'm going to, inshallah, get everyone in the correct mindset. We need to go through a few things, making sure that everyone is on the same page with in terms of the mindset to have when it comes to learning the Quran. We need to learn proper etiquettes of learning, things like that. That's what we're going to go through in the first half of the class. And in the second half of the class, inshallah, we will start going through um, the alphabet, inshallah. We won't go through the entire alphabet. We'll go through as much as we can, inshallah, maybe the first half of it. So that's the plan for today's lesson. Now, in terms of the lessons themselves, the way they work is most of the class is just going to be me talking and explaining the concept. Um, and you are going to be listening and then practicing from home. So when I, read something and I explain how to read it, then, from your house or wherever you are, you're going to be practicing it. And obviously, you have to make sure that you just keep your mic muted during the class because obviously there are quite a lot of us over here. So if everyone had their mics unmuted, it would be quite chaotic. So I just ask that everyone keep their mic muted during the class. Now, if you have a question at any point, any time at all you have a question about something that I say, or you're unsure about something, you want to ask, then by all means ask. You can ask in the chat, or you can just unmute your mic and say I've got a question, something like that, and that's completely fine. Um, if you ask in the chat, then I'll read it and I'll answer it for everyone. If you're a bit shy to ask the question. So that's how the classes basically work. So I'm going to explain it. You're going to practice. Now, in terms of the feedback, the way you guys will progress and the way you guys will fix your mistakes is after the class. At the end of the lesson, I'm going to give the entire class homework, and the homework is the way you're going to make progress. You have to do the homework, you have to practice it, and then inshallah, you're going to send me your homework privately through WhatsApp. I'm going to listen to it, and then I'm going to give each individual person personal feedback based on what they send me. So you'll see what I mean, inshallah, at the end of the class. So that's just a general overview of how these classes will be running, inshallah. So this first class is just going to be me explaining a few things. I'm going to be talking about getting everyone in the correct mindset, inshallah. So let's begin. So this class, the Tajweed class, is going to be, inshallah, to help everyone develop a foundation of Tajweed. Okay, the foundation of Tajweed is learning the correct way to pronounce the Arabic letters. Okay, that's the foundation. Or the Quran was revealed in Arabic, so we need to make sure that we learn how to pronounce the Arabic letters. Okay, that's the number one thing. That's the first thing, and that's going to be the main focus of this course. Is going to be developing the correct pronunciation of the Arabic letters, inshallah. Okay, students will be taught how to pronounce Arabic letters from their specific places. So each individual Arabic letter has its own way of being pronounced. Every single letter is distinct and different in its own way. So inshallah, that's what we'll be learning to help students improve their recitation of the Quran and recite fluently with new rules learned in class. So, once as we go through the course, we will be also learning the rules of Tajweed. So, learning the letters and learning how to pronounce them and everything like that, that's the building blocks, that's the foundation. And once our foundation is strong, as we go through the classes, one by one, we'll be learning the main rules of Tajweed that are used in the recitation of the Quran. And inshallah, we will learn how to identify them and apply them in our recitation. To apply the rules through practice and learn how to recite the Quran in a slow, measured, rhythmic manner. So Allah says in the Quran, "Awzid alayhi warattilil Qur'ana tartila," to recite the Quran with tartil, with measured recitation. And what that means is, what the tartil means is to pronounce each individual letter correctly, and to make sure that you're not shortening something that should be long, and you're not lengthening something that should be short. Every single letter is pronounced correctly, every single word is pronounced correctly. So that's inshallah what we'll be going through inshallah by in this course. And hopefully inshallah by the end, everyone should be able to read the Quran relatively fluently with minimal mistakes. And if you do make a mistake, you'll be able to identify it and you'll be able to work on it inshallah. And you'll be comfortable with identifying all of the rules and applying them in the Quran. So if you have absolutely zero knowledge of the Quran, like nothing at all, and you don't know anything, then don't worry. This course is designed specifically for beginners, for those who have absolutely no knowledge, or for those who have very very minimal knowledge. The course is designed specifically for you. So don't worry about how difficult it is, or that you won't be able to do something that you can't do, because we'll be going through everything from the absolute beginning level, inshallah. So just a quick summary. So we're going to, inshallah, go through all the main rules of Tajweed, and hopefully, inshallah, that's going to provide you with the foundation of knowledge that you can build off of, inshallah, by the end of this month. So what I like to do at the start of each class is go through a few du'as. It's important to read these du'as. If you can't read them in Arabic at the moment, then you can just read the English translation underneath. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. We always start with the name of Allah. Now, why is this important? This is important because we need to remember that we are learning Allah's book. Okay, so we have to remember Allah at the start. And not just that, but with everything that we do, we should always start with the name of Allah. It can be anything at all, from something like leaving your house to, cooking a meal, or, even putting your shoes on, or, just any kind of activity that you do. It's always, always good to remember Allah and do it with the name of Allah. Because if you remember Allah at the start of that activity, then the activity that you will do will have blessings inside it. So that's why we should always start with the name of Allah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And we should always remember Allah, not just when we're reading Quran or doing any kind of spiritual activity, but even worldly activities. We should always try our best to remember Allah. So this next dua over here, Allahumma la sahlan illa ma ja'altahu sahlan wa anta taj'al al-hazana idha shi'ta sahlan. Oh Allah, nothing is easy except what you have made easy. If you wish, you can make the difficult easy. Now, this is very, very important to remember. Allah says in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ, that we have definitely made the Quran easy for remembrance. Is there anyone who would like to remember? This is Allah saying this. So this is not my words, this is Allah's words. Allah has said this in the Quran, and not just once. In that same surah, He repeats this ayah multiple times. And this is for emphasis. Allah is emphasizing that the Quran is easy, easy, easy. Okay? Now, what does this actually mean? Because many, many people have difficulty learning, and others have it very, very easy. So what does it mean when Allah says we've made the Quran easy? Well, what it means is Allah can make it easy for anyone. Okay? Allah can make it easy for me, He can make it easy for you, He can make it easy for anyone. So whoever Allah makes it easy for them, for those people, the Quran will be easy to learn, easy to remember. And if Allah does not want to make it easy, then that's when it's going to be difficult. Now, the question arises, how do we get Allah's help? How do we get Allah's help that we want it to be easy for us, and we want Him to make it easy for us? How do we do this? Well, the simple answer is we have to ask. We have to ask Him to make it easy for us. We have to ask Him that, oh Allah, make the Quran easy for me to learn. You have promised that you've made it easy for remembrance, make it easy for me. And this is a dua I used to do myself all the time when I was memorizing the Quran. I used to always say this whenever I used to have difficulty in memorizing a particular part or remembering a particular part. I used to make this dua not just out loud, I used to make it inside my heart. I used to say inside my heart, oh Allah, you have said that the Quran is easy, make it easy for me. That's the dua I used to say. So it's very, very important to make this dua and develop this reliance upon Allah to make it easy. Okay? Because if He doesn't make it easy, then we're going to have a lot of difficult time. But if He makes it easy for us, then we'll be sailing through, inshallah. So it's very, very important to keep this in mind. And not just with the Quran, but with everything. We should always ask Allah to make things easy for us. We should always ask Allah for His assistance with everything, not just with the Quran, but with everything that we do. We should always ask Allah that, oh Allah, make this easy for me, allow me to complete this task. Okay, so in this way, we are going to be developing a trust and a reliance upon our Creator. The next dua, Rabbi zidni ilma. Now, this is a very short dua to learn, but very powerful. Oh Allah, increase me in knowledge. Okay, we are learning the Quran, and the Quran is knowledge. Okay, so this is a very simple short dua to learn, and it's in the Quran itself. This dua is in the Quran, so it's a very good dua to read. The next dua, Allahumma anfa'ni bima 'allamtani wa 'allimni ma yanfa'uni. O Allah, let the knowledge that you've granted me be useful for me, and teach me whatever can be fruitful for me. Now, this is a very beautiful dua to read, because many times people learn things, but it's not really useful, or they learn useful things, but it ends up going to waste, meaning they don't put it to practice what they learn. For example, many people, they'll go to university, they'll get a degree, and then they end up doing a job that's completely different from the field. Okay, so all that knowledge that they gained in the university, what good was it? But similarly, in the spiritual sense, many people know what is right and wrong, myself included. um I'm guilty of this as well. We know what's right and we know what's wrong, but when it comes to applying what we know what is right, is very difficult. So we should ask Allah that whatever knowledge that He gives us, it becomes useful for us and fruitful for us, that is beneficial knowledge, and we are able to apply all the knowledge that we learn into our lives. So we're learning Quran right now, and this is the greatest thing that we can learn. We're learning how to read the Quran. Hopefully, once we're reading the Quran, that's going to develop the curiosity to go further and learn what the Quran is saying, and so on and so on. So we ask Allah that whatever knowledge we get, it becomes useful, it becomes practical. We apply everything that we learn into our lives, and through that we become better people, we become better Muslims, inshallah. So this is a very important dua. And lastly, this is a very beautiful dua. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. Our Lord, accept it from us. You are indeed the all hearing, all knowing. Now, this dua was recited by Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son, Prophet Ismail alayhi salam. And the time when they read this dua, if you are familiar with it, was when they were building the Kaaba. This is in the Quran as well. When they were raising the foundations of the Kaaba, this is the dua that Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam recited. Okay. Now, can you imagine building the Kaaba, or building a mosque, any kind of mosque? Okay, it's a huge task, and it's a huge deed that you're doing. Building a house of Allah. Okay, people, they do something good, and they think, they think that they've done something amazing. They think that they're something amazing. But look at Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. He built the Kaaba, he raised the foundation, just him and his son by themselves. And look at the humbleness that they had. After they did it, as they were doing it, this is the dua that they made. Oh Allah, accept it from us. You are the all hearing, all knowing. Meaning, they don't even know that if the good that they're doing is being accepted by Allah or not. So they ask Allah to accept it. And what we are doing in comparison to what they did is very small. Any kind of good deed that we do, we should never ever think that it's huge. We should never ever think that it's good enough. We should always think to ourselves, oh Allah, accept it. Accept this small thing that we're doing. It might feel difficult for us. It might feel like we're doing something huge, but in our heads, in our hearts, we shouldn't think that. We shouldn't get big-headed. We should always keep ourselves humble, and we should always think to ourselves, I should do more, I should do more, I should do more. And we should always ask, oh Allah, whatever small good thing I'm able to do, please accept it from us. That's the dua that we should keep in mind. That's the kind of mindset that we should always have, not just with Quran, but with all kind of activities, with salah, with giving in charity, with helping other people. We should always aspire to do more and more, inshallah. So this is the last dua that we should try to implement in our lessons, inshallah. So moving on. So that's how I usually begin the lessons. I'll just go through these duas. Now, the importance of tajweed. I've mentioned it before that Allah says in the Quran, "Awzid alayhi wa rattil Qur'ana tartila," to recite the Quran with measured recitation. So, I've mentioned that what that means is to recite each letter the way it should be recited, meaning with the correct pronunciation, and to make sure that you do not shorten something that should be long and that you do not lengthen something that should be short, meaning every single vowel is also recited correctly. Um, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Indeed, Allah desires that the Quran should be recited in the manner in which it was revealed." So obviously the Quran came down to our Prophet ﷺ, and you know the way it came down, we should aspire to recite the Quran as best as we can, because these are the words of Allah. These are the words of our Creator. So we should always have this in mind, this respect for the Quran, that we need to do our best effort with regards to the Quran. We should never accept less. We should never be comfortable with where we are. We should always keep aspiring to go further and further in the way we recite the Quran. Etiquettes of reading the Quran. So these, what I'm going to go through now, these are some things that inshallah, hopefully everyone will be applying during the lessons. So not just reading the Quran, but it's important to have these etiquettes when learning the Quran too. So number one, to make the heart present when reading the Quran. Now, obviously right now, we're not in a classroom, okay? Everyone is in their own home. I'm in my house, you're in your house. There might be, so many things going on inside your house right now. You might have children that are screaming. You might have, someone cooking in the house, and there's, the smell of food. So, there might be distractions inside the house that aren't present in a classroom. Okay. But regardless, we need to make an effort to keep our heart present when learning and when reading, of course. But right now we are learning, so we need to make the conscious effort to keep our heart present. Now, what does that mean? It means that during this time, 7:45 to 8:45, or wherever you are in the world, during this time, during this class, when we're learning, and of course, whenever you are practicing at home as well, outside of class time, you need to make sure that you are fully focused and engaged in the task at hand. Okay, that's what it means to make the heart present. Obviously, if you're in your house, it's a bit more difficult because you're not in the that environment of learning. You're not in a classroom, or you're not in a masjid, which makes it sometimes quite difficult, a bit of a challenge. But you know a challenge is also an opportunity to show that what you are made of, to show Allah that how dedicated you are, that what, even though these challenges are here, I'm still going to make sure that I'm fully focused on the lesson. Okay, now what that also means is, obviously you might be on your devices, might have your phones around you. It's very easy, very tempting to just be on your phone scrolling through as I'm talking, or while you're reading Quran, just to check messages or something like that. Is very easy. And this is something that we should avoid doing. We should make sure that whenever we sit down to learn the Quran, whenever we sit down to read it, anything to do with it, we have to make sure that our 100% focus is on that task. And then once we are done, then we can go back to the world, we can go back to doing whatever we want to do and need to do. But during this time, and during this time where you are learning and reading the Quran, you have to make sure that you are 100% focused on it. And that's what it means to make the heart present. Ponder over the meanings and commands that Allah Ta'ala states. Obviously, this goes to, the further education, once you start learning the meanings, once you are able to recite the Quran, it's very important to aspire further and learn what Allah is actually telling us. But this won't be covered in this course. To be in a state of ritual purity. So those who know how to do wudu, it's very important to make sure that you enter the lesson in a state of wudu. Obviously, even though you might not be reading, or you might not be using an actual physical copy of the book, being in a state of ritual purity does a lot of things, has many benefits. Okay, the number one benefit I personally think is doing wudu before the class starts is it freshens you up. Okay, this class is quite late for those who are in the UK. 7:45 p.m. is quite late. It's at the end of the day. You might have come back from work, you might have been dealing with children, you might have been doing so many activities during the day, and your body is quite tired, your mind is quite tired. and now you have to, be focused for an entire hour learning the Quran. It's not easy. But if before the class you do wudu, then what it's going to do is it's going to freshen you up, it's going to freshen your mind, it's going to reinvigorate your body, and you'll be ready to learn. Okay. And beyond that, there are other benefits, but I think that's the main one to keep in mind is before the class starts, 7:35 p.m. Just perform wudu, maybe pray 2 rakat if you want to, and that's going to really, really help you miles. Okay, so I ask everyone does this, inshallah. To seek refuge from shaitan. So that's to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim. This is to do more with reading the Quran, but we can also do it when we are learning. We don't want any influence from shaitan. So it's important to ask Allah for His protection from the shaitan. So if you don't know how to say A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim, just say, Oh Allah, protect me from the shaitan. We don't want his whispering during these classes. We don't want him anywhere near us, especially when we are learning the Quran. We don't want him near us at any time, but especially when we are learning the Quran, he doesn't want us to learn it. He doesn't want us to read it. So he's going to do his best to distract us. So the simple thing to do is ask Allah for his protection from the shaitan, and he won't have an effect. And lastly, to not talk during recitation. So this goes back to keeping the heart present. Make sure that you are fully engaged. You're not distracted at the time. If someone tries to distract you, just tell them, look, I'm learning at the moment. I'll get back to you later, or something like that. Or best thing I think is just make sure that those who are around you know that this time is going to be your learning time, so they will know not to distract you at this time. So these are a few etiquettes everyone should keep in mind when we are doing these classes, inshallah. Mistakes in recitation. So these are, inshallah, over the course, we will be covering the types of mistakes that one can make during a recitation. Now, mistakes are of two types. There are the major mistakes and there are the minor mistakes, okay? Now, don't be, confused. Don't think that the minor mistake is okay to make and the major mistake, we shouldn't make it. No. Inshallah, hopefully, by the end of this course, we will learn the difference between the two. And inshallah, we will learn how to avoid both of them. Now, what do they mean? I'll give some examples. So the first type of mistake is, a major mistake. So this means that if you are doing it on purpose, then you are going to be you're going to acquire a sin. So if you're doing it on purpose, meaning that you know that it's a mistake and you're not fixing it, then that means you're going to be getting a sin, because a major mistake will change the meaning of the Quran. Okay, for example, changing one letter into another. So an example of that is you might say the word qalb. Okay, the word qalb means heart, and the word kalb means dog. Okay, now these are two very, very different words in terms of their meaning, but the way they sound is very, very similar. Qalb and kalb. They are read with two different letters at the beginning, the qaf and the kaf. Now, if you if you are reading the Quran and Allah is talking about the hearts of the believers, for example, but instead of saying qalb, you say kalb, you've changed the meaning of the Quran. So this is why we need to put a huge, huge effort into being able to recite every single letter clearly the way it should be recited. Okay. And if we are unable to recite a particular letter, we have to put 100% of our effort into learning how to recite that particular letter, because there are letters within the alphabet which sound very, very similar to each other. For example, I just mentioned one of them, two of them rather, qaf and kaf. They sound very, very similar to each other, but if you read one as the other, you can potentially change the meaning of the Quran. So this is why we need to put a huge, huge effort into learning how to read every single letter the way it should be recited. Okay, and the first few lessons, inshallah, we'll be going through all of the letters, how to recite them, and everyone will get time to practice this, inshallah. And that's going to be the bulk of this course. When I'm giving my feedback, I'm going to be telling you which letters you have to practice, and it's up to you individually to make sure that you put the effort in, you put the practice in. Okay. So another one, making additions or omissions, missing out a word or adding an extra word in, or sometimes even just adding a letter in, or reading a different vowel. So these types of mistakes, they are classed as the major mistakes. Okay. they can change the meaning of the Quran, and these ones are the ones that we need to make sure we put a lot of effort into avoiding. The second type of mistake is the minor mistake. Now, this is more to do with the rules of Tajweed. Okay, so if we make these mistakes, the meaning of the Quran is not changed. So you won't get a sin for doing this. You'll still be reading the correct words. But these types of mistakes, inshallah, hopefully by the end of the course, we will also be avoiding these mistakes as well. Now, I'll give you an example of the minor mistake. I gave one with the major one. Now, a minor mistake, for example, you might um, miss out a tajweed rule. So, for example, at the beginning of Surah Baqarah, Allah says, أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَىٰ هُدًى مِّن رَّبِّهِمْ. Okay, now that's read correctly. Now, if someone was to make a minor mistake, they might read أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَىٰ هُدًى مِّن رَّبِّهِمْ. Now, the words that they read was correct. They didn't read, anything wrong in terms of major mistakes, but they missed out the rules of Tajweed. Now, what the Tajweed does is it beautifies your recitation. Applying the rules of Tajweed, if a person is able to read all the letters correctly and apply the rules of Tajweed, their recitation automatically becomes beautiful. Yeah, that's the miracle of the Quran, that it's not your voice that's beautiful, it's the Quran itself that's beautiful. I personally don't think I've got a nice voice, but alhamdulillah, people have heard me reading sometimes and they'll say, MashaAllah, you got a nice voice. But in my head, I think to myself that no, it's not my voice that's nice. It's the Quran that's nice. It's the Quran that's beautiful. So if anyone, doesn't matter who you are, recites the Quran the way it should be recited, meaning with the correct rules of Tajweed, automatically it's going to sound beautiful. And this is why we should try our best to avoid the minor mistakes, and meaning we should make sure that we do our best to also learn the rules of Tajweed and apply them, because what that's going to do is it's going to beautify our recitation. And this goes all back to what our Prophet ﷺ said, that Allah desires the Quran should be recited in the manner in which it was revealed. So we should always, so we should put a lot of effort. Obviously, this is going to be more towards the second half of this month, learning the rules of Tajweed and applying them, inshallah. So those are the two types of mistakes, the major and the minor. Inshallah, hopefully, by the end of this month, we will learn what they are and we won't be making them. So before I move on, how is everyone feeling at the moment? Just a 1 in the chat if you feel good at the moment, a 5 in the chat if you've got any questions at the moment. Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay, so this word here, makharij, what does it mean? Makharij means the place of exiting when a letter is pronounced. So what does that mean in English? Well, it means when we reading a letter, any language, the makhraj of that letter is where the letter comes from. Okay, for example, if I say the letter B in English, okay, for example, I'm saying ball, the letter B comes from the moist part of my lips touching each other. So I will say that the makhraj of the letter B is the moist part of my lips. Okay, so I'll repeat that. This is very, very important. If you want to make a note, you should make a note of this, because I'm going to be talking about makhraj quite a lot in the coming days, and in this lesson as well. So the makhraj of a letter is where the letter is pronounced, meaning where the sound of the letter comes from. Okay, this is very, very important for us to know. I'm going to be using this word all the time. So when I talk about a letter's makhraj, I'm simply talking about where the sound originates from. So in my example for English, I use the example of the letter B. Now, when I'm saying the letter B, the makhraj of the letter B is the moist part of the lips. So when the lips touch each other, that's where the letter B comes from. So when we're going to be talking about the Arabic letters, we are going to be talking about the makharij, the plural makharij. So we're going to be mentioning each Arabic letter. We will be going through their particular makhraj, meaning where the sound comes from. And inshallah, through learning where the sound comes from, we will be able to practice it. Okay, so this is very, very important to know. So these areas over here, inshallah, these are quite general. So the empty space of the mouth and throat, the throat, the tongue, the lips, and the nose. So these are quite general. All the letters, inshallah, will go through their the particular parts, and I'll try my best to keep it as simple as possible. I don't want to overwhelm anyone. I personally don't think that it's super important to learn like super specific theory. The more important thing is the practical application of this. So where I need to be specific, I'm going to be specific, and where I think it's okay that we don't need to know the complete details, then I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. So I don't want, and that's going to be for the entire course. When I feel that it's really important that you need to know specific details, then I will mention those specific details. And when I feel that the specific details are not needed for the correct application, then I won't tell you the specific details. Okay, um, because our main goal is just applying and learning how to read. So we don't need to know all this extended theory. So for this reason, we can kind of skip all of this. So inshallah, we've got about 25 minutes left. So hopefully over the next 25 minutes, we'll go through maybe the first 14 letters of the alphabet. So at this point now, inshallah, you'll be able to practice, maybe make notes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each letter individually, one by one. I will read it. I will then explain the makhraj of the letter. So when I say makhraj, I'm talking about where the sound comes from. Okay. So I will read each letter once, then I will say the makhraj, and then I will repeat it a few times. And when I repeat it, I want everyone to repeat it as well. And hopefully through that, inshallah, you'll be able to learn. Obviously, just keep your mics muted when you are practicing. So the first letter over here is alif. Alif. Okay. Now the makhraj of this is the emptiness of the mouth. Okay. Makhraj of alif is emptiness of the mouth. Alif. So imagine you're just saying the words a and leaf. Alif. That's how we say alif. Okay. Alif. Again, emptiness of the mouth. The next letter is ba. Ba. And just like the letter B, this comes from the moist part of the lips. Okay. Moist part of the lips, the letter ba. Okay. So alif. Ba. Okay. Alif. Ba. So emptiness of the mouth, moist part of the lips. Now, when we're talking about the makhraj, when I mention something specific, I want you to memorize the makhraj. Okay, this is something that you will have to learn, inshallah. Make sure that you learn it and learn it well, because this is very, very important. This is the foundation that we mentioned, learning all the letters correctly and how they are different from each other. Now, this next letter here is ta. 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 Now, the makhraj for the letter ta is the tip of the tongue touching between the gums and the teeth. No, sorry, yeah, between the gums and the top two teeth. Okay, so I'm going to do a little diagram for the letter ta. So over here, the letter ta. Okay, if you imagine this is a side view of your mouth, these are your top teeth, and these are your bottom teeth. Then your gums are going to be like here. Okay, so these are your gums. So imagine these are your top two teeth, the incisors. Then you want your tongue to be right about there. when you're saying the letter ta. Okay, that's the sweet spot. That's where you want it. If you go any higher, then it's going to sound like this. Ta. It's going to sound too strong, like the letter T in English when we say like two. So if you go a bit higher, that's when the ta will sound a bit too strong. You want it between the gums and the teeth. That's going to give it that soft quality. It's going to be ta, ta, ta. Okay, so that's the makhraj of the letter ta right there, between the gums and the top two teeth. Okay. Now, again, at any point while I'm going through these letters, if you have a question or if you want me to repeat it, please, by all means, ask in the chat, or just ask me just unmute yourself and quickly ask me. That's fine. I want everyone to make sure that we're all on the same page before you move on. So I don't want to go through something and then you feel like it's rushed, or you feel like you want me to explain it again because you didn't understand it. I'm more than happy to go through things multiple times just to make sure that everyone understands before we move on, because we're all one team here. We don't want to leave someone behind. So don't feel ashamed or embarrassed to ask a question or anything like that. No. And most likely as well, from my experience as both a student and a teacher, is if you have a question, most likely there is someone else in the class who has the exact same question as you. So by asking it, you'll not only be benefiting yourself, you'll be benefiting others in the class, inshallah. So that's the first letter, alif, ba, ta. Okay, emptiness of the mouth, moist part of the lips, the tongue touching between the tip of the tongue touching between the top two teeth and the gums. Now this next letter here is fa, fa. Now the makhraj, excuse me, the makhraj of the letter fa is the tip of the tongue touching the tip of the top two teeth. Okay, so again, I'll just do a quick diagram. So we're looking at the letter tha now. So this one has 3 dots like this. Now, again, just imagine a side view of your mouth. So these are your top 2 teeth, okay? And these are your bottom 2 teeth. So you want your tongue to be touching right there. So you want to keep it inside the mouth. So don't take your tongue outside of the mouth. Don't say tha, because then it's going to be too strong. Okay? If your tongue goes, somewhere here, then the sound is going to be too heavy and too strong. So you want to keep your tongue inside the mouth, behind the teeth, but at the very, very bottom. And also, it should only touch the top 2 teeth. If you touch more than the top 2 teeth, if you touch 4 or 5 or 6 teeth, then again, it's going to sound very strong. It's going to sound like this, fa, fa. It's going to sound really, really strong. But if you're only the tip of the tongue is touching, and it's only the top 2 teeth, then it's going to sound nice and soft, and it's going to sound like this, fa, fa. Now, if you're touching too many teeth, what I advise is get like a mirror, or maybe a front-facing camera from your phone, and check how many teeth your tongue is touching. And if it's touching too many teeth, then practice getting your tongue, really long into a small tip, and practice only touching the top 2 teeth. Okay. Now, very, very common mistake is people say sa. People read this letter as sa. Now, sa is like the letter S, and it sounds like the letter, we'll come to it later, sin. Now, sa is incorrect. Reading this letter as sa is incorrect. When you're saying sa, you're touching the bottom teeth. Your tongue is touching the bottom teeth. So that's incorrect. If you have a habit of making this mistake, then you have to correct it now. Make sure you only touch the top 2 teeth. Okay, very, very important. Common mistake. Many people make it unknowingly. So make sure that now you know how to read this letter. Make sure you practice only touching the top teeth. Tha. So again, alif, ba, ta, tha. Okay, so far quite straightforward. These 2 main ones to remember: tip of the tongue between the gums and the teeth, and here the tip of the tongue touching the tip of the top 2 teeth. So this next letter, I'm not going to get into super specifics with it. I don't think it's very important. But this letter is called Jim, 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 and is very, very similar to the letter J in English. So as I mentioned, I'm not going to get into super specifics. Just imagine it's quite very, very similar to the letter J in English. Jim, okay? So alif, ba, ta, tha, jim, okay? So far, quite straightforward, alhamdulillah. This next letter is where it might start getting a little bit difficult, a little bit tricky. This letter, there's no English equivalent for it, but this letter is pronounced ha, ha, ha. And the makhraj of this letter, meaning where the sound comes from, is the middle of the throat, okay? So the way I explain this letter is, imagine you're sprinting and you've just done a 100-meter race. So how are you going to be breathing after you finish sprinting? Are you going to be, breathing all relaxed, or are you going to be breathing very, very heavily? Most likely you'll be breathing very heavily. You're going to be, out of breath. So you're going to be like that, panting. Yeah. So that's kind of how the ha sounds. So if you're unsure how to get that ha sound, just imagine you've gone for a sprint and you're out of breath and you're breathing very heavily. It's going to be like that. So that's how the ha sounds. That's where the sound comes from. So that's how I want you to imagine the letter ha. Another way to imagine it is if you wear glasses, when you're cleaning your glasses, you breathe on it. You breathe on the lens before you clean it. So when you're breathing on the lens, how do you breathe on it? You go like that. You breathe hard and heavy onto the lens, and then you clean it. That sound is the ha sound. So when we are practicing the letter ha, we have to make sure we put a lot of strength into it. We get the sound from the middle of our throat, and we, put a lot of, power into that ha. Okay, especially when it comes to practicing it, we want to practice it really, really strong. Okay, so that's how the letter is going to sound. Ha, ha, ha. Okay. Now, I mentioned we want to practice it very, very heavily. Now, the reason why is, these are just the individual letters, but we want to put a lot of practice into getting it as strong as we can. Okay, so the reason why is, so when we come on to reading the Quran, it's going to be more easier for us. Okay, so the example I like to give in that sense is the example of someone going to the gym. Okay, if someone goes to the gym and they are able to, bench press 100 kg, then to bench press 50 kg is very, very easy. Or if you can lift something really, really super heavy, but with a lot of effort, like, if you can lift 100 kilograms, but with lots of effort, it takes you a lot of strength and effort to lift that much, then lifting 50 kilograms is very, very easy and is not a problem at all. So we should apply this same concept to practicing. When we practice these letters individually, we should put our 125% effort into it. That way, when we are reading words and we're reading the Quran, the letters will naturally become very, very easy for us to read, and we won't have a problem pronouncing them correctly. So that's this concept I'm introducing it to you now. Make sure that when you practice 125%. So when we come to the Quran and we're reading words, 100% is no problem at all. So the next letter over here, this is the letter is kha, kha, kha. Now the makhraj of the letter kha is the top of the throat. Okay, the top of the throat. Now, the way I like to explain this one is, imagine you got something stuck in your throat. You're choking on some food or something, and you trying to get it out, and you're gonna go like that, like that. That sound, that's the letter kha. It's quite a guttural sound. It's quite, it might feel unpleasant to make, but that's the sound where it originates from. It's from the top of the throat, and that's how it sounds. Now, just something to note. The kha sounds quite different to these letters. So I'm going to read through a few letters and I'm going to ask a question. So, and I want you guys to think what's different about the letter kha. So, ba, ta, tha, ha, kha. Okay, I'll do it again. What's different with the kha? Ba, ta, tha, ha, kha. Okay, who noticed the difference? If you, yep.
Is it the pronunciation as the ha and the kha is from the middle of your throat?
Yeah, so there's a difference in the pronunciation, yes?
Yeah.
Yes. MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair, brother. So,
No.
yes, between the ha and the kha, there is a difference, of course, the middle of the throat, top of the throat. But there's also a difference there's a similarity with the ba, ta, tha, and ha, but something different with the kha. Now,
Would you
kha,
say, sorry, would you
yes?
say with the first few ones is like with the open mouth, and with the ha, you got to kind of close your mouth?
Yes, exactly. Fantastic. Jazakallah khair, brother. That's the exact answer, yeah? So, the kha is what we call a heavy letter, or some might call it a full mouth letter, okay? Um, What this means is when we read the letter kha, we're going to read it slightly different to normal letters. Now, we're going to go through this. There are 7 heavy letters in the Arabic alphabet. Okay. Now, these 7 letters, there are a few things we need to keep in mind when we read these letters. Okay. So this is something to memorize as well. It's very, very important to learn this now. So with regards to the heavy letters, okay. What's the difference with them and how, we know the sound of the difference, ba, ta, ha, kha. The sound is clearly different. And our brother mentioned that with the other letters, your mouth is quite open, and with the other letter is quite closed. So what I'm going to do is right now, I'm going to write down a few things, a few steps to take when pronouncing the heavy letters. Okay. These steps, inshallah, apply them whenever we come across a heavy letter and whenever we're practicing. Okay. Number 1, the first difference with the heavy letters compared to just normal letters is that you're going to raise the back end of your tongue. Now, this might be quite tricky, especially if you're a beginner, but the back end of your tongue should be raised when you read a heavy letter. Okay. Now, what does this mean? Well, when we're reading, for example, the letter tha, our tongue is quite relaxed. Okay. But when we're reading a heavy letter, okay, normally our tongue is going to be just relaxed like this. But when we read a heavy letter, we should try to raise the back end of it. Now, you might not be able to do this overnight. You might not be able to do this even after a week. But with practice, inshallah, through constant effort, you will be able to do this, inshallah. Okay, that's the first thing to keep in mind whenever we read a heavy letter. The next thing is apply pressure to the makhraj. So with the other letters, they were quite light, quite easy to read, ba, ta, tha, ha, quite easy. But with the letter kha, is really strong. Sounds very, very strong compared to the others. And the other heavy letters are the same. They're going to sound really, really strong. Now, the reason that strength is there is we need to apply pressure to the makhraj. So in the case of the kha, we have to put that pressure on the top of the throat. Okay. The next thing to do when practicing is slowly release the sound. Okay. Now, what does this mean? This will probably more come into play with the other letters. With the kha, probably not too necessary. But with the other heavy letters, it's very, very important. That's how you're going to achieve the correct sound, is slowly release the sound of the makhraj. Okay, so slowly release that sound, meaning don't do it too quickly. With the other letters like ba, ta, tha, you don't need to slowly release the sound. Okay, but with kha, there's a bit of that you're like there for a little bit and then you're making the sound kha, and that's gonna make it sound more stronger. Now, with regards to raising the back end of your tongue, For the beginners who are quite new to Tajweed and new to Arabic language, and you have no idea at all how to do this, then there is a second way of doing it. It's not entirely correct, but it will help you achieve the sound until you are able to raise the back end of your tongue. So what I mean by that is, this is something quite difficult to do, okay, for a beginner. If you're unable to do this, then do number 4 instead. So don't do number 4 if you are able to do number 1. But if you can do number 1, but if you can't do number 1, then do number 4, which is round your mouth. Okay. Now, the reason I'm putting this separate to these 3 is this is technically incorrect. Okay. But it will help you achieve the correct sound. So what I mean by that is, if you have someone who's a really, really good qari, someone who has mastered Tajweed and knows how to perfectly recite the Quran, they will never ever do this. Yeah, their mouth will always remain the same when they read the Quran, whether it's a heavy letter or a light letter. Okay, when they're reading ba, ta, tha, kha, their mouth will remain the same shape. And the reason why is when they get the sound of the kha through raising the back end of the tongue. But if you can't do this and you have difficulty with doing this, then to get kind of like a fake sound, but it will still sound okay, but it's not truly correct, then round your mouth. Okay. And this is again just kind of like training wheels. Use this until you are able to raise the back end of the tongue. So through practice, through lots of effort, inshallah, you will eventually be able to do this. But while you are unable to, then just round your mouth. So instead of saying kha, you're going to say kha, kha, and that's how you're going to get that sound. Okay. So again, I need to just mention that this is technically incorrect, but just do it for now if you're unable to do number 1. So everyone needs to make sure that they memorize this, because when we come across the other heavy letters, it's going to be important to keep it in mind. So memorize it now. That way, when you come to the heavy letters, you'll know exactly what to do, inshallah. So just a quick recap of what we've gone through so far. I'm going to read the letter, then I'm going to read the makhraj of it. So this is something to learn. Make sure you learn the makhraj of each letter. Make sure you memorize the makhraj of each letter. Even if you're unable to pronounce the letter, make sure you memorize the makhraj. That way you'll be able to practice it. Okay. So alif, emptiness of the mouth. Ba, moist part of the lips. Ta, the tip of the tongue touching between the gums and the top 2 teeth. Tha, the tip of the tongue touching the tip of the top 2 teeth. So again, it's not touching the bottom teeth, it's sa, no S kind of sound. And it's not going to be fa, because that's very strong. Your tongue is going outside. You should only touch the tip of the teeth. Jim, keep it simple. Just say that kind of like the letter J. Ha, middle of the throat. And lastly, kha, it's a heavy letter, and the sound comes from the top part of the throat. Now we've got 5 minutes left. I was planning to go through a few more letters. I was planning to go through maybe these ones, but I don't want to start them now because obviously we might not be able to get through all of them. So for now, we'll stop over here and I will explain what to do with the homework, inshallah. So I mentioned at the start of the class that, each lesson I'm going to give homework to the class, and it's up to you to practice and then give me your homework. Now, the way the homeworks will work is I'm going to give you what to do, and then you're going to practice it. And then the way you're going to give your homework to me is through a private message on WhatsApp. So don't send your homework on the group chat. Send it to me as a private message, as a voice note, private message. So on WhatsApp, you can send voice notes. So send a voice note to me on WhatsApp privately, and that's how you're going to send the homeworks. Now, what is the homework for today? Today's homework is to practice the letters that we've gone through. So practice these 7 letters, memorize the makhraj of each one that I've mentioned. Okay, so you have to memorize each one. where the sound comes from, and practice them. And send me a voice note of you reading each letter and telling me the makhraj of the letter. Now, keep the voice note as short as you can. Obviously, there are 20 of you guys, so I'm gonna have to go through 20 voice notes. So if you extend the voice note too long and you're giving me a whole introduction, you don't need to do that. Keep the voice note nice and short, nice and simple. Just say assalamu alaikum and then begin the homework. You don't need to say, Ustad, this is the homework I'm going to send you from last day's lesson and this and that. Keep it really short, because that way it's going to make my life easier. I won't spend so much time listening to all these other things. If you want to send me a message, just send a text. But with regards to the homeworks specifically, just the homeworks, keep them as short as possible. But any other messages, you can write them out as long as you can. I'm a quick reader, I'll be able to read it. So the homework is going to be practice these 7 letters, memorize their makhraj, okay? And also try to memorize this as well, inshallah. This is going to help you tomorrow, okay? Practice it as much as you can, especially if there's a particular letter you have difficulty with. Then send me a voice note on WhatsApp privately of you reading each letter and telling me their makhraj. So the voice note should literally be like this: alif, emptiness of the mouth; ba, moist part of the lips; ta, tip of the tongue touching between the gums and the teeth; tha, and so on. And you're going to read these 7 letters, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to it, and I'm going to check if your pronunciation of the letter is correct. So if it's correct, then I'll tell you it's correct. And if your pronunciation is a little bit off, or you need to practice it, then I will tell you, and I will give you that feedback, and I will tell you which letters you need to practice. And that's how all of the homeworks are going to work. You're going to practice it. I'm going to give you feedback if you make a mistake or if you make an error. And through that, you're going to practice more and work on correcting that error, inshallah. Does everyone understand what to do with regards to the homework? If you understand, just write a 1 in the chat. If you have a question, just write a 5 or just ask me. Okay. Now, just for today's homework, after you send your voice note, just write down your name in the chat, so that just write down your name to me on WhatsApp, so then that way I can save you onto my phone, because everyone's number is going to be new to me. So just write down your name. If you want to write down also where you're from or something like that, then you can do that. That way I'll know who you are. I'll be able to save your contact onto my phone, and then that way, inshallah, I'll know who is who, inshallah. Send the voice note to me. Try to send the note as maybe before 12 p.m. Because I am going to be busy from basically from 4 p.m. onwards. I'm busy with other classes. So if you send me a note, after 4 p.m. of tomorrow, meaning UK time 4 p.m., then I won't be able to get back to you until the following day. But if you send it to me before maybe 12 p.m., so from tonight up until 12 p.m. tomorrow, then inshallah I will try my best to get back to you. Sometimes, some days I get really, really busy. I won't be able to get back to you immediately, but I will make sure I do get back to you. So also a brother asked me, I'm going to be busy on some days during the time of the class. So I'm going to be missing the classes. Another brother just asked, I missed some of the notes regarding the makhraj details. So don't worry about it. I've recorded this lesson, and I'm going to record all of the classes, inshallah. So if you miss something, if you miss like a particular part, or even if you are busy during that class at that time, then inshallah a recording will be available, and you can catch up and you can watch the recording, and inshallah there won't be an issue. So I hope that's okay. I hope that makes sense. So inshallah I'll see everyone tomorrow, same time. And I look forward to hearing everyone's voice notes, inshallah. So yeah, so that's the end of the class. I'll see everyone tomorrow, inshallah. Take care, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.